thank you guys for being so patient. I know actors aren't used to waiting. My name's Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to the SAG Foundation conversation with Michael Keaton. I honestly cannot remember the last time I was speaking to an actor who is so beloved for so many different roles. Obviously, he's done everything from the broad comedy of Night Shift and Mr. Mom to searing dramatic roles like Clean and Sober. For his latest performance, he has, I literally don't have time to list all the nominations and awards, but I will just say a SAG Award, a Golden Globe Award, an Independent Spirit Award, and a Critics' Choice Award nomination. He is, of course, Beetlejuice, he is Batman, and now he is Birdman. Please welcome Michael Keaton. Oh, wow.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Oh, couches.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on another amazing performance. We've missed you.
Well, you mean since you saw me about a week ago?
Not me personally.
Wow, this is interesting. There's a lot of water right here. I've got water, I've got coffee, 90 minutes. There will be a trip to the men's room, I'm sure. Oh, and look at this.
Oh, no, we
Just
don't,
in case
we don't call attention
all
to
right,
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess they figure 90 minutes he's going to need something.
No, this is the highest compliment to you that I'm a little bit nervous. It's my Xanax.
Get out of here.
It's there just in case. There is, no wait, that's my estrogen.
You never talk to me anymore.
This is a SAG audience, so I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Wow, I can't remember. I'm a proud member, and I cannot remember when I officially got. Well, I was an AFTRA member a long time ago because, oh, you know what? I think I got an AFTRA card. Would I've gotten one in Pittsburgh for just showing up on television, like in a, for actually robbing a drugstore? But no, I'm kidding. I was on the news. And they gave me a card.
You were Taft-Hartley.
I beat the rap, so they thought, that's good acting. I can't remember. I think maybe I did a little something in Pittsburgh at a PBS station, possibly. Is that possible? Would I have gotten a SAG card for that? Yeah, and then the merger happened, and there you go.
You have a SAG card, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to end up with a SAG award before you have a SAG card.
That would be awesome. They found out he's not even a member. Yeah, I'm like hiding out in the woods.
Well, I believe because you were born Michael Douglas,
yes,
obviously, and so was
Michael John Douglas.
When you joined SAG, you had to change your name.
Yes, that's right, Michael John Douglas. And I've been slowly, I find little ways to put Douglas back in. I'm trying not to be John Cougar Mellencamp because remember he had like 4 versions. It was John Cougar, then John Cougar Mellencamp, then it was a bunch of things, and I'm not sure what he is now. But because I'm very proud of my name, there was Mike Douglas and there was Michael Douglas. And I was living in a crummy little apartment. Actually, it wasn't that crummy. It was not, in retrospect, I kind of like that little place. I think I was in the one on Butler, over in West LA. I had a lot of apartments and a lot of jobs. And I was living with 2 other guys, and I kind of vaguely remember sitting by the window. This is where I can't remember, I think it happened, and somebody said, hey, dude, you got this job. I got some kind of job. You got to sign this thing. And I said, yeah, okay. And they said, well, you can't, just make up a name or something. I was going through the alphabet, and I was in the case, and it seemed, kind of neither here nor there. And I thought, ultimately, I will, find the really cool name. And I just never got around to it, So, and then I had another job, and I said, well, just, and then I never really stopped. And I'll tell you something though. My middle name is John, and where I come from, there are a lot of nicknames. Everyone has a nickname, and I don't know, and I'll tell you my favorite nickname in a minute. But everyone has a lot of nicknames. So my brothers, we have 3 brothers and I have 3 sisters, and everybody was called everybody something, and they would call me Johnny. And then they'd call me Johnny, and then they started calling me Jackson. And so I thought, oh, that'd be nice if I called myself Michael Jackson.
Dodge that bullet.
Yeah.
Well, the irony is Michael Douglas isn't even Michael Douglas.
No, he isn't. No, he isn't. I forget what his father's real name was.
Ivanovich.
Russian Ivanovich.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do. I directed a little film, and I may next time kind of slide it back in because I like my name actually. I like my name. I always liked my first name, even when I was a little kid. I don't know why. I remember one reason why, because I went to Catholic school, and I remember Saint Michael killed Lucifer, right? Isn't it? He slayed Saint George slayed the dragon, and any saint who kicks some ass, I was like into it. It was like he carries a sword, something like that. I was very into that kind of thing.
So you grew up in Pennsylvania?
Yes, just outside of Pittsburgh, between a little mill town where my mom was from, a little steelworking kind of mill town, and just down the road, a little place called Coriopolis, which was more like a railroad town back then. But there were also some mills down there, right on the Ohio River. And so, but we were kind of country people. We were kind of hillbillies is what we were. Because we weren't far from Ohio, right around where kind of southeastern Ohio. This man knows this area, and West Virginia, right in there. And in 25 minutes, if you were really driving fast, which we often did, you could go to West Virginia and drink, and then drive back even faster, which was really stupid. It was just tremendous growing up there. But we really were. The first house I grew up in. I'm looking at the size of this room. The first house when I was very small, 7 kids, 9 originally. My mom lost two babies, which was not uncommon then. And I'm the youngest. And so at one point there were 9 of us for a brief period of time, 7 kids and 2, in the house, and I'm looking for the back wall. I'm not lying. This house was not as deep as where that back wall was. It was, small, and the roof, the top floor was an attic, second floor. Not an attic, but it was an attic second floor. It was usable. There was a bedroom of my mother and dad's bedrooms up there, and I don't know where they put all of us. I think I was in a crib in their room until I was like 14. No, I really didn't want to leave home. Till I was I don't know how old, because I had to have been somewhere. It might have been my sister and myself up there. I can't figure out where they put us. Then we moved just down the road to an old farmhouse that my father's family had that was totally run down. And my sister told me about a year ago, I never knew this, that for the first 6 or 8 months or something like that, we had no indoor plumbing. Yeah, we had an outhouse. And I don't ever remember that, because as a kid, I didn't care. I barely had clothes on anyway when I was little. I was always naked when I was a kid, just always running around naked. Yeah, that's why I still like to go to the bathroom outside now. I do, man. There's nothing like going home after being out all night, standing outside, just peeing. I just love peeing outside. I do. It's in my yard. It's not in front of the municipal building or anything.
So how do you get from this rather winter's bone
No, not quite.
to dreaming of being an actor in Hollywood?
Well, I think what happened, I'm not sure, we could call a therapist and ask her to run down here, and she could probably tell you better. I think probably what it is I always had a very active imagination, and I was a reader, still a reader, but I really would get lost in books, and I used to love to draw. And being the youngest of 7, I think I had to build an audience. And everybody was pretty funny. Not my father's side of the family. They were stern Presbyterians. And the other side was Irish, and they were drunk Irishmen. My uncles were not too bad, but it was the folks before them that were pretty crazy. But all very charming. And my mom was real funny, and all the brothers and sisters are funny. And I had to build an audience, I think, probably. And I really loved the freedom, because, there was no way she could keep track of where all of us were at any one time. And the beauty was, it was really not an issue. We roamed pretty freely. And I think I could just drift off. And, when my son was small, I sat him down and I gave him permission. I said, You're going to always be allowed, if you don't abuse this freedom, to go in your room, close the door, lay down on your floor, or lay down on your bed, and just daydream. I said, it's okay to do that. And in fact, it's good to do that if you want to. But, within limits, eventually get up and, help wash the dishes or do your homework or something. But I think I had that freedom, and I took full advantage of it because, I was by once everyone started moving out, it was, then whatever brothers and sisters were left. And interestingly, actually, except for my oldest sister, is really an interesting person, my sister closest to myself and my brother closest to me, who I think are going to come out here in about a week or two, see me, we're a tiny bit, a little bit creative, but I was the only one who, this is not what I do for a living is not something people where I come from would ever admit to, frankly, wanting to do. It would be too indulgent or something, you know what I mean, or too, that's crazy thinking, you know what I mean? So I think I kept a lot of that to myself, but when I would read anything, I'd get lost in reading or daydream or write my little stories or draw or watch on the television, because we only had one car and my dad was at work, and so it's not like we could go and see movies very often. So I saw most of the things I saw growing up on a small television screen. I would get really lost, and it was never enough for me to just be a viewer. It was unsatisfying. I had to know. I always wanted to see what it felt like. I was detail oriented about, if I was watching westerns, what cowboys wore. I would just watch. I always hated when they were too clean. It drove me crazy. You know what I mean? For how they wore their guns. I always thought, West, these guys have to smell or sweat or something. But I always was about authenticity. Really, I was.
At what age was this?
When I was little. And also another thing I remember, I remember sitting on the floor. My dad and I used to watch the fights on Friday night. Usually, if he was around, would watch the Friday night fights. I don't know if there's no one in here old enough to remember what the Friday night fights were, but that was a thing. Huge names would fight, like every third Friday. Big name fighters would fight. And one night we're sitting there, and then a movie came on. And so he's sitting there, we're just talking, I'm lost in this movie. There's a beautiful woman in this thing. And I'm like 7. And at the time I'm going, she's totally fucking hot, this chick. I'm not thinking like, she's a girl. My dad goes, oh, he's gonna kiss her. And there's a scene where the guy's gonna kiss her. And I started pretending like I was going, oh, I'm embarrassed. What I was really thinking was, fuck yeah, I'd be kissing her too. She was like ridiculously good looking. Always had that. I'd see a movie and go, yeah man, that, right there.
That was your impetus to be an actor.
You mean seeing hot women at the age of 7?
Knowing that you could kiss them on screen.
Yes. Which, then you do it and you think, well, it's not uncomfortable, it's just very businesslike, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I don't know, actually, I'm agreeing.
Here, let me show you.
Yeah, totally. 14-year-old me just like had a mild freak out, yeah. But you actually, when you went to college, you didn't go to study acting.
No.
I think I heard at one point you thought about being a journalist?
Yes, I actually took a journalism class, and I've played journalism 3 times.
You have, yeah.
And I like it. It's just inherently interesting to me. I still love to read newspapers. That was Robbie Robinson, the guy who just played Walter Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the Boston Globe. I just played him in a film, and he kind of tucked that into a little article. It's not, I did kind of consider it when I was in college. I only took 1 or 2 classes, but I really liked it a lot, actually.
So how did you finally decide to make the leap? You moved to Pittsburgh and started working in television?
I'm from there. So you mean in the city? No, what happened was I was going to college, and I was always interested in what I just told you, all of that. And I liked to write. And I took when I was 14, I wrote a short story that, I remember this, you know how you always remember certain teachers and everyone remembers, and I didn't have many, to be honest with you, that were that great. My grade school education was much better because it was a Catholic education, and I was mostly frightened not to do well. And that works. But my high school I just kind of didn't really like very much, but I had one teacher when I was in 9th or 10th grade, and I wrote this story, and he submitted it to a kids magazine. And it really was, he called me and he said, that story was awfully good. And I submitted to a magazine. I was high as a kite. I just thought it was the greatest. It was. I never found out whatever happened to it, but it wasn't life changing, but that made you feel, as people here can relate to. It's not that it makes you feel worthy, because I didn't feel unworthy. It's just really big for a kid. All those little moments are really big. And then later, me and some of my friends would, skip class and do all the stupid things. I was not a good student, and this art teacher grabbed me and threw me in his class, which he did with a few other guys, and he was very nice very smart about it, and said, "You're going to get in trouble," which I was. I was getting into some trouble, and he said, but he must have liked me. He threw me in the class and said, "Sit down." And then after about 15 or 20 minutes, he just threw some pencils and papers and paints and stuff, and then I started taking art class. I really liked art class. I started to paint, and I was kind of lost. It was just such a smart thing for him to do, and so for me, it had to come out somewhere, and I didn't know how it was going to come out, I chose acting, but it was nothing I would ever admit to. I took a theater class. I took a drama class first, which I really liked, because I had never read plays. It was Introduction to Drama, and I still remember the book. I think I still have it, and it was Chekhov, and it was O'Neill and everything. It wasn't that I got it. It was just I had never been exposed to that kind of literature, which I just simply found interesting, and a really good teacher there too. And then when I went to, I kept going. I took a theater class that didn't really do anything for me at all. I got into a play, and I was not good, and the play didn't do anything for me, really. It was fine. And then I dropped out of school to make money, which I had to do a few times to make enough money to get back into school. And when I dropped out, I was doing a play in Pittsburgh or two and started to write. And I was working during the day and doing a play at night, and then I started working in a nightclub doing stand-up at the same time. So I was doing all those things, and that's when I really started to dig it. That's when I would write late into the night, and then that thing of taking something you think about and think it means something, and then put it up, and watch it either fall or not fall. There just will never be anything that good. That's as pure as it gets, And I don't get to do that anymore. But so that's what really. And then I did a play. I was pretty good in this one play. And then I said, okay, here we go. And then I did the weirdest thing. A bell should go off if I get really dull and boring here. So just say, okay, we get it. That's enough. I'm willing. I'm okay with that. Do you want me to keep going?
Of course.
Okay. So during this, I'm doing this dinner theater.
Oh.
For $25 a show, and it was truly, when I look back, oh boy, and I was the comedy element of it, and the comedy wasn't good, and I was reading stuff that I just didn't relate to at all. Nice man ran the show, but you'd go out and do this thing. He was very successful, would make a lot of money putting these things up and find local talent, and somebody said, you ought to go audition. I did a few things I'd written. They stuck me in it. I'm doing the show, blah, 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 doing the thing, and then I said, and then backstage, and this girl from Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh had a wonderful voice, and she was backstage reading a book, and I looked at the book, and it had something to do with the Navajo Nation. And I asked her what she was reading, and she said her cousin had just come back from working out there. And I was looking at this book, and these are the weirdest things in life that I am a firm believer in. They just kind of drop in or come across at times, and you just got to be open to letting them happen. And I have no idea why, but she said, why are you interested in doing this? Her cousin was volunteering. And I heard the word yes come out of my mouth, and like another person said it. And I went home and I read this little book, and I'd never been west of West Virginia. And I don't think I'd only been on a plane maybe once. And I told the guy, he said, hey, I'm going to be out of the show in a couple weeks. And I quit the show. He was angry. And I took off, and I ended up spending the summer in the middle of this unbelievable landscape in Arizona, and the biggest American Indian reservation, Native American Indian reservation in America, which is right in Chinle, Arizona. And I worked there for a while, volunteering and doing various things. Put a play on with these little kids, these little And the play was, because I remember this kid wrote a little story, and his name was Gerald. I remember this kid. And a lot of the kids out there would carry, I'd be like 7, 8, 9 years old. There was a sign in the hallway that said, "No spitting." and because they all carried a little dip in their pocket. They all carried a little Copenhagen or a little skull in their pocket. And all the little kids had a little can in their pocket. And I ended up like the 15, 16-year habit, just the worst habit in the world of chewing tobacco. And so I did that, and this kid wrote this wonderful story called Monster Goes to the Rodeo. And I thought, yeah, monsters in a rodeo. I just thought that was the richest idea from this little kid's brain, you know. So we put on this little play.
And then how did you end up on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Then I hitchhiked to San Francisco and hitchhiked home.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, all the way back to
Back
Pittsburgh?
then you could hitchhike somewhere. I got enough. I had no money, and I somehow I must have saved enough money to get a plane ticket. It was probably like $60 or something from like, I forget, not Denver, maybe Denver, back home. I forget how I got there that far.
And once you got back, is that when you started working on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
No, I had already been doing that, and it wasn't just him. It was a PBS station where you did everything. And if there was any chance at all, if there was somebody was shooting a 16mm film, a documentary, there are a lot. Okay, you're gonna love/hate this next one. You're just gonna love this next one, I have to tell you, because you'll totally relate. So I would do anything. I would jump at any opportunity if there was something I could. I once, like, I would change shirts, throw up 2 lights, and if somebody was doing a story about a local council meeting or something, and they wanted to show some tiny little dramatization, I'd go, okay, me. And I'd stand and I'd be like the boy walking into like jail or something. I'd do anything, any opportunity I could. I would say, okay, I'll do both. I'll carry, I'd work on a crew, would work in warehouses, stacking, it was physical labor kind of, but then Fred Rogers had a show there, and I would work on his crew occasionally when they needed guys to work. And it was a very good station. It was a well-regarded PBS station, still is, WQED in Pittsburgh. And they would do some really good documentaries. And one was I don't remember. It was a German director from Germany, very arty. He was very arty and very serious and very German. We were doing a small series on the Revolutionary War in the colonies, and I dug this shit because I used to read about that. I always thought that was very cool territory. So he needed a bunch of people, they had the main actors, and they would bring in, I think Renee Bourgeois played a role, and he'd bring in a few actors for a couple choice roles, and then for extras, they'd just say, anybody want to do anything? Of course, me, yeah. And so you put on just horribly hot, scratchy, miserable wardrobe, just the scratchy old things and bad boots with giant buckles on them. And he was shooting, very serious, and he's very impatient, this man. And of course, there's a scene where there's about 25, 28 guys. All they're doing is walking through. Here's a shot, nothing, just some kind of thing. We need men walking through the forest. And then we're going back to Renee Bourgeois and any other actor of any credibility we have here for the real scenes. So it's a quick shot. We're just supposed to walk up. This is me walking up the hillside. And I would hear, cut. And then you're mumbling, just walk. Just walk up to here. All right, let's go again. There you go. And then I didn't know who he's talking to. I thought he might be talking to me. All right, let's go again. And I'd go, because me, I'm thinking I left my mom and dad at home, and my dad got shot earlier. I have a whole fucking backstory. Cut! Just walk up to here! Screaming and, what did he do? Just walk through the woods! Now I know it's me. And I'm thinking, okay, he's right, I'll just walk up the woods. I get about halfway up and I go, bro, I'd been creased earlier in the ribs. Damn colonialists. Oh man, yeah.
And he didn't fire you?
No, but I don't think I worked another day after that. I don't think I was asked back. Just walk.
Not long after you decided to make the move to Los Angeles.
Yes, I saved up every dollar I had, which was $263 or something.
And did you start working right away, or did you have to take survival jobs out here?
I worked a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
I worked many, many, many jobs. In my life, from the time I cut lawns when I was 13 or 14 for a woman, and then I always tried to make a couple of dollars here and there. I mean a couple of dollars. But I always had a job. And when I came out here, I worked a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs. Yes, a lot of kind of embarrassingly silly jobs. And then, but the smartest thing I did in retrospect was, instead of, I was going to acting class when I could. And I would go sporadically. I didn't go to acting class all the time, but every once in a while I thought, I should probably get into a class. And I did that a bit. And but the smartest thing I did in retrospect, not knowing at the time that it was smart, I was writing a lot of comedy, which I loved, like as I was talking about before. And I would the first place I was moving to New York because I was going back and forth from Pittsburgh to New York whenever I could to just meet people or maybe read, if there was an open audition somewhere and just show up. And I was getting ready to move. And I was also doing stand-up while I was doing a play and working at the station. And I was writing stand-up, and there was a jazz club in Pittsburgh, and I would work out there rather unsuccessfully. And so I started to write, and I went to Catch a Rising Star in New York, which is, I just got the greatest rush from the sense memory. And I was standing on and you would stand outside starting at about 6 in the evening or 5 in the afternoon or something like that, and you'd wait as long as you had to wait to get in line to get in, sign up, see if you get a spot that night to get up, and you get, probably back then you got 5 minutes. 5 minutes, wow. Like I had 5 minutes. And because it takes a long time to build anything up. And so I got asked back, and Larry David got asked back. And that's when I first met Larry David, and out on the street talking, and because I remember him being very funny, and so I had to hang around and go up again the next night, and so I would do that. And I was moving to New York, and a friend of mine said, "You should try California." So I came out thinking I won't stay, but I saved up all my money and I came, and did what everybody does. You work in all these jobs. I was going to say stupid jobs, but actually I was lucky to have them. And then a friend of mine, I went down to see a friend of mine who was writing comedy, and he said, "You got to go meet these people, and they're good people to know." And they were at the Norman Lear Company, and I actually took a bus over the valley and then walked in the heat all the way down to the office. I was dripping in sweat. My shirt, as I was showing up was soaking wet. And I went in, and they met me, and they said, "You got to come back and read for this little thing." And I came back and read, and I got it.
Wow.
And I showed up, and they saw me, and I got called into one of the writer's offices and said, "Hey, we're going to write another episode for you." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't know if that was a good thing or bad thing. I thought it was a pretty damn good thing. So they made it a two-parter, and then I would show up periodically on different things. And then I got it. Then it was like that, and then I'm trying to remember the sequence of this, and then I got an opportunity to do a pilot for a potential series, and they gave me a little bit of holding money, and I mean a little bit of holding money, and I thought I was the richest guy in the world. I just thought, I'm telling you, man, I couldn't believe that anyone would write a check like this. And it was probably 5 figures, which was a lot of dough. I mean, the high fives, it's a lot of dough, So that was wonderful. And then, kind of nothing happened. And then I'd get a run on some things, and nothing would happen. And I was, you think and I was working at night, doing it at the clubs, boom, 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 go to a college here and there. And I was getting quite good at stand-up, but I really wanted to act. Mm. So what I was saying about the smartest thing I ever did was, by getting up on a stage in the Comedy Store, the improvisation, or any club, all these guys, Letterman and all these guys, we were running around and getting our little cars and drive way out to the valleys, to the 49 or these horrible clubs. There was a club for a while way down in Santa Monica. There was nothing in Santa Monica then. You just go wherever there was any place to work. And that was tremendous, because I wasn't sitting in an apartment looking at drama log, if anybody remembers the drama log, and going, "Oh, okay," and then, go down, there'd be 150 guys there, and you have no shot in hell, and or waiting to think somebody's going to call me or meeting somebody in acting class who might get you turned on to their commercial agent, and I was horrible at I was not a great auditioner anyway, but when I would audition for commercials, I was truly horrible. Because back then, all commercials were like this, you know? And I was just the worst. I could have never.
Wait, you couldn't do that?
No.
Because that's Beetlejuice. What you just did.
And so, you know, then it dried up, which was good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because then you go, oh, I see how this works. This is not so good all the time. And then it would get a gig, and then it would dry up. So early on, I think I was blessed with knowing, getting a good sense of how things work, you know.
Now, you said you were bad at auditioning, with, specifically commercials. Do you remember, it's probably been a while since you've had to audition.
Long time, yeah.
Do you remember your worst audition?
No. No, I've blocked it out, obviously. But I actually became a good auditioner, and this is what I tell when sometimes, you know, actors ask you, I always, in terms of, what I finally figured out about auditioning, and this was big, was I thought, I'm going about this wrong. I'm going about it like that's the job. I have to go get the job. That was kind of easy. That was kind of obvious. And what I thought was, well, there's like, I don't know, I didn't think about it this cerebrally. That's like, well, you got to fight through resistance. And I thought, no, I'm going to work. I already got the job. The fact that I got a call to show up in the valley or way down here, and I'm going to get 3 minutes in a room or 20 minutes in a room, whatever they're going to give me in a room, that's the gig. Got the job. I'm going to work today. So I just went, I'm going to work. And I showed up ready to go to work. And then I started to like auditioning. I started, yeah, okay. And it was getting it or not became, I mean, there were times where you're really, really disappointed because you really want it and thought you got it. I'm not going to lie. But mostly it was like, it's not even the point. The point is to go to work. And then tomorrow I'll get another one. I'll go to work tomorrow.
And did you notice a shift when
Yes,
you sort of changed
huge,
that mentality?
Huge. I became a pretty good auditioner. And I became very free, too. You know, really free. And that was, and you know, sometimes once you make the wrong choice, you're kind of out. It's over. You know, you know, it's like you go into the room and go, okay, here's the thing. And you go way down that road. And there were, or probably still are, very, very, very few people who can go, oh, wait a minute, wait, stop. Wait, let me help you. Because most of the time they don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're, you know, it's really hard. What you all do is hard, and I think you're very, very courageous. I really mean it. I think it's great.
I know you were a regular on the Mary Tyler Moore
Yeah.
Hour, which
Yeah.
seemed like a surefire hit. I mean, it's
Yeah,
Mary
well,
Tyler Moore.
Not if you were there, but. Well, this was a weird attempt to try to make Mary a variety show star, kind of. You know, and what's interesting about the first round, because I did 2 rounds, I stuck with it. The others bailed, but she did one, and then they kind of changed it. And boy, those were good days too, man. Regular paycheck, driving to CBS Studios every day in my crummy little Volkswagen. It was awesome. I was so happy, just going. I had a gig almost every day. You know, it was cool. And the first group was this really. It was Letterman, me, Susie Kurtz. Judy Kahn was a wonderful comedy writer, actress, married to a really funny comedy writer now. And who else was it? Dick Shawn, the great, crazy, insane Dick Shawn. Oh man, Dick Shawn was so out there. It was so entertaining. And it was not really, and really good writers. And they were trying to like hip it up. And, you know, let Mary have a variety show, who's a really nice woman, really, really sweet woman. And that didn't really work, so those guys kind of bailed, and they asked me to stick around. They rewrote a role, and then they made it more of a sitcom-y kind of thing, / variety show. That didn't really work either, but it was steady gig and a lot of fun.
And you followed that with a show that I actually really liked, Working Stiffs, with you and Jim Belushi, sort of before either of you really broke out, which was another show I was kind of surprised didn't take off.
Yeah, that was an enormous relief when it didn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was a fucking building off my shoulders. It was awesome. I was the happiest man in the world when I woke up and said, "You're canceled."
Yes.
I was so happy. The weird thing about me in that was I had a few things canceled. And I was happy almost every time.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm very appreciative to go to work, but it just was never, that stuff was, back then, television is so good now. I mean, now you go, let's go find some of that stuff. That's the gold, I think, in terms of writing. And but most of the stuff was just so, and then you'd think, man, and you didn't really get much control then, you know. People like, you know, all these funny people like from Parks and Rec, and I don't know how long ago people started to figure out you have to let funny people kind of be funny, and you got to trust that they know more than you know about it, without being arrogant, you know. And that really never, it was a constant fight. It was a constant fight. And you'd get into these things, and it was just, then you'd think, oh, 7 years of this, I'm gonna blow my brains out. It's just horrible, you know. And I was never really good at that classic a sitcom. I'm not very good on television anyway, but and it's too bad because I like it. I don't watch a lot of it, but there's such good stuff around that I'm just not good. I don't know why. I had to find a way to fit into it, you know, find a way to not be too, I don't know, too much or something, and that's not good for anybody.
Well, you did
You know
30
what I mean?
Rock not too long ago. That was
Yeah,
pretty great.
I was not really. Thank you, but thank you very much. I didn't think I was very good in that at all. And I'm not one of those, oh, I'm no good. That's a wasted energy. Don't do that. That's wasted energy, and it's usually bullshit. You know, that thing of that self-loathing. I'm serious, that self-loathing is a fucking lie. That's a fucking lie.
But I believe Working Stiffs actually led to helping you get your first major film role in Night Shift.
Yes, it did,
Yeah.
because Lowell Ganser was a really funny writer who had written for, I'll tell you one of my favorite, one place where I really felt at home when I did television, because there were some spots that I enjoyed. One spot I did 2 episodes of what was then the Tony Randall Show, which was really smart, really well written. And I learned from everybody, man. I watch everybody. I don't care the age. I don't care if a kid's 17 years old or somebody's 77 years old. If people have something to show me or teach me, I'm all about that. I love that. I took a tiny little role in a not a very good movie just to go work with Duvall, and we became friends. But I just wanted to be in the room, and I'd sit and stay and just, when I wasn't working, just watch his process and everything. But Tony Randall, who was fastidious, was really, and I was really into free form kind of. I rewrote and I improvised, and it was this bundle of creative energy. And I wanted to do this. I wanted to play this guy. I wanted to play these characters. I wanted to do all these things. His discipline and his sense of timing and his insistence. He basically really directed shows because he knew so much about it. And when I did this episode, which I really liked doing, I created this character that, once again, I auditioned and I did it, and they started writing into the show. But I was not what you would think the type of person or actor that would ever be in a show with someone like Tony Randall. And he was very appreciative, and I learned right away, you gotta check your shit for a minute, just sit here and listen to it. Not that he ever said, this is how we do it. I just watched him, and I thought, wow, this guy's so precise. He was so insistent about timing and why the blocking worked a certain way, and he knew exactly what he was talking about. It was the opposite of what I was doing at the time. It was really good, really fun to be in that company.
And I understand with Night Shift, they had a really hard time casting your role. I think they went to everyone from like Chevy Chase to Eddie Murphy.
I don't know, but I was doing Working Stiffs, as you said, and Lowell Gans directed that episode. Lowell Gans had worked on The Odd Couple, the Tony Randall Show, and he was a kid from New York, and Babalu Mandel, they were writing partners, and those guys used to write some wonderful stuff. And Lowell was from the time he was a teenager, I've learned, was crazy for comedy and comedy writing. And he was writing a lot of television shows, and he's writing some stuff for, who were the guys, the Paramount guys that were doing the Fonzie show and all that stuff.
Gary Marshall?
Yeah, Gary Marshall, all that. And Lowell was ensconced over there writing for different things, and he came and he was directing an episode of Working Stiffs, and I thought he was really funny. He wasn't a great television director, but he was so into comedy. And he had really apprenticed under Tony Randall as well, actually. And so I really liked him. I thought he was a very quirky, neurotic, funny guy. And he went, I think he went, I kind of know, he went and told Ron Howard, he said, yeah, look at this kid, he's funny, he's really funny. And you should get a call, I don't call him in here, he's funny kid. And Ron was probably going, what? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I said, yeah. So Ron, I never met, and he calls me in, or I get an audition, and I go in and I prepare like a maniac. And I go in and audition, and I think it was, they kind of went, okay, we weren't ready for that at all. But it wasn't like crazy. It really wasn't. It was like it had a shape to it. You know what I mean? It was a character, and I was based on a couple of guys I grew up with, and what was in the script, and what I thought was a good idea. And so I went in, and I got asked back, and then I got asked back again, and then they brought a few more people, and watching, and I could tell Ronnie was digging it, but Ronnie didn't have a lot of power then yet in the movie world, even though he had directed a couple little smallish movies. And so I think I auditioned, I'll say, once I said like 9 times. It wasn't that much, but it was. I was called back many, many times, and it was, that's nerve-wracking, call back for the 6th time. I think it was 7 overall in terms of, they weren't all full out. Well, they were almost all pretty much full-out auditions, but some of it was just sit in a room and talk and mess with a scene or something. There were, and then I got it, and that was really, really great, because it's where I really wanted to go ultimately, and that it just felt more right, big screen. I don't know. I like movies. And
was it your first film?
First feature film. I had done a little thing in a television movie. Man, this is really fun and dangerous, because I remember so many things that I never normally think about. Yes, I did a little thing where I also wasn't very good, tiny role in television, but then that was the first feature. Yeah.
It was also Kevin Costner's film debut.
That's right. He played one of the frat brothers. Yeah.
Yes, who runs through screaming.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought it? And I mean, did your life sort of change after Night Shift? It was a huge hit. It really sort of boosted Ron's career. And your career.
Yeah, because I don't know. It just was. It basically worked. The movie was real funny. And I started getting offers and getting, or at least getting a lot of meetings,
And then you followed that with Mr. Mom.
Yes.
Which is, yes, sure.
I love that little movie.
I love
John Hughes wrote that movie.
I'm actually shocked they've never remade that movie.
I know. It makes total sense to remake that movie.
Yeah. It was really ahead of its time. And
way ahead of its time. And it became part of the nomenclature, actually, that name. And it was, that movie, if you ever go and look at it again, I haven't seen it in a long time, it was during a time when the economy wasn't that great, and you would think it would have been, and maybe people had, explored this, but the notion of a man becoming the homemaker, it doesn't sound like anything now, and even then, I didn't even think it was that big of an idea, but it was a really big idea, or a bigger idea than I thought it was, and what it said about, and how Terry Garr's character was really strong, stood up for herself and took over, and I loved the whole notion of it, but my dad was, always worked 2 jobs, was a dude, he was like a guy. It was not, we never thought twice about if my dad had to, my mother was at church, because my mother was always at church. Which my dad would always say, Jesus Christ, does that woman go anywhere but church?
Your dad sounds like Beetlejuice.
That's where the character came from. Had the same hair. My dad would make breakfast sometimes, because it was like, I don't know, why is that a big deal? You know what I mean? If somebody had to do something, I don't ever remember him doing a little laundry, but he probably did. You know what I mean? He kind of did what you had to do. It wasn't like, well, men don't. It was like a non-issue in the house to some degree, because I think people do what they need to do. So doing that at the time was really was kind of groundbreaking in a really cool kind of way, you know.
I actually want to take an audience question, sort of a, oh gosh, I'm sorry if I mispronounce anyone's name. Is it Eva Marie?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Coming from stand-up, how much of your work is improv-based, especially in those early movies?
A lot, like Night Shift, a whole lot. Beetlejuice, a whole lot. And Mr. Mom, a lot. But Mr. Mom was actually that, but rewriting, you know, because it was, while the script was funny, it wasn't flushed out. And then it got into the hands of some people who were actually going to put money in, and people who produced it were going to make it. And it started to get, anything John Hughes had started to go away. And I think he hung around for one rewrite or something, but then they kind of wanted to kind of shape it into something, and that was feeling really uncomfortable. And at the time, my partner Harry Columbia and myself, who was my manager too, really, really funny, really, really, truly, genuinely funny man, and really smart. And we started to say, hey, you know, some of these scenes need to be worked on, and Stan, the director, was, you know, he's a good enough guy and a nice, you know, he directed certain things really well, and he gave that thing a really cool, almost Norman Rockwellian kind of vibe look to it, and lit it really pretty. When people weren't lighting low budget comedies, they didn't give a shit about that. He gave it a very nice, you know, he thought about it. But comedy wasn't really his strong suit, and so we would start to take the script and go. Also, I looked like I was about 10, you know, and I had 3 kids, and I liked the idea of a really young dad. I thought that was a cool thing, not to mention it or anything, but I liked that it would kind of like, I just thought it was interesting, you know. And I was just about to have and I was a young dad, and I was just about to have my son. And so, and then I grew up, there were, it wasn't really realistic, you know. I remember one of the first notes was, I said, people don't act like this, you know. People with a lot of kids running around, and there were always kids in my house. My oldest sister had 7, the other one had 6, and the other one had 5. There were just fucking kids everywhere. You know, it was like one of the things, whenever there was a party at anybody's house, you know how people, you know, you don't have any closets or anything, you throw coats on the bed, right? That's what you do. Does anybody, am I this old? Then you go, you know, somebody's in the bedroom.
No, we
you
still
go,
do
hey,
it.
you know, hey, Tommy, put it on the bed. You know, you throw your coat on the bed. Very often, you go, oh, good night. People would be taking coats, and you'd see like a leg, and there'd be like a kid passed out under there. There'd be like kids everywhere, you know, like you have to spray them. So I, you know, thought, you know, there's this wonderful moment. One of my favorite actors in the world is Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, yeah.
I just love Mark Ruffalo.
You just worked with him.
Yes, and he does little things that people don't realize, and his character work is so subtle sometimes. It's so great. He does this thing in Foxcatcher, which I love. His character gets out, I just love Little Moses. His character is get out of the car, and he's playing that very clear guy, very diametrically opposed from his brother, kind of. And he does this thing with a kid where he kind of is talking, and then he kind of grabs the kid, almost like it's a bag of groceries. You know, and he's talking, the kid's kind of like hanging, you know, and he kind of like sets him down. Hey, you're doing that dialogue. I thought, that is such a cool choice, you know, not this, you know, because he's not thinking about it. It's this kid. He's got to get him out of the van, you know. It's like, I thought, oh, those little touches are really sweet. So in that regard, I said, that's not the way this is, you know. He should sit down and, like, there should be a toy everywhere. Like, there's a little moment where I'm in the job interview, and I think I find a little doll or something that I would just add these things, and then we started to rewrite things. And the only thing a couple things would come up on the spot, because some scenes weren't playing. I just really wanted to make this movie work, and it was funny, but it wasn't there, and it had no element of, like, no rough edges. So the chainsaw thing.
I was going to ask about the chainsaw scene.
Was not in the script. And what that was Martin Mull comes over, and at this point I'm not looking good, I'm a little depressed, and I thought, what is he? And I thought, he's emasculated. You know, he's really emasculated at this point. And this is not a guy who, like, thinks that much about it one way or another, but now, you know, he's emasculated. And his wife's going away on a private jet, and Martin Mull is so funny. And he came with that beautiful looking little mustache and stuff. and I look out the window, and we're getting ready to shoot. And I thought, it's okay, but this is not working. And I said to the prop guy, I said, hey, get me, and I started thinking when I said, get me, you know, and I thought, there's no way he finds me a chainsaw. And he goes, you know, chainsaw. I said, yeah, I said, go get a chainsaw. And he goes like this, he starts to run out, and he goes, hey, do you want the safety goggles too? And I go, yes! So it was that. And that's what happened, and I played like, you know, I was working on the house. Meanwhile, the guy barely knew how to operate a chainsaw. But, you know, it was kind of trying to, you know, and then when we were doing the scene, and Martin, this is the person, I say this all the time, but we were doing the scene, we're running, it was really funny. Like, do you want a drink? He goes, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And I go, scotch? You know, so we're laughing, and we're playing it, and Martin says, when I say how you're wiring it, or whatever the setup line is, I can't remember. He said, and I forget what the original line was. Martin says, you should say 220, 221. And I thought that was hysterical, whatever it takes. So, and I think he said whatever it takes. I may have added that, I'm not sure. So like there was improvisation like that, but mostly that was a case of, we're shooting this thing. They really weren't into us improvising a lot, and there were some really good people. Tom Leopold was a really funny comedy, really funny in that. What's his name? Jeffrey. Great actor, Jeffrey Tambor, so fucking good. It's a really good little cast. And so it was kind of like that. So there's improvising, but Ronnie really was free about, and Night Shift was really free about improvising, and Tim was, and Gung Ho, we improvise. Yeah, a lot more. I find some people do it correctly and some people don't do it correctly. If it's indulgent, or it doesn't make sense for to move the story along, you're kind of jerking everybody around, you know. So I don't really do that, and I haven't done it for a while. And it's been fun to do what you started at, you know, which was make the script work, you know. But I sure do miss it.
Well, I love that Whatever It Takes actually became a running gag
in
the film after that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Gung Ho, which reunited you with Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Another movie that kind of feels weirdly ahead of its time.
Yeah.
This fear of Americans losing jobs to the Japanese.
Yeah, I like things like that.
Yeah,
you know?
which doesn't sound like the best premise for a comedy.
Yeah.
And yet it is.
Yeah. Well, at the time, remember, we were making the Japanese cars. They were taking over factories, not far from our neighborhood down there, and we shot actually some stuff down around Steubenville, and oddly we shot a lot of that stuff in Buenos Aires, in a Fiat factory, where I got in and we were shooting in some place in this crummy little trailer I had to stay in. It was really crummy, trust me, not like, oh, this is not a really nice trailer. It was a crummy little trailer. It was so cold, and I said, can we get some heat in here? And the guy barely spoke any English, and he figured out what I wanted, and he came in, and there was some kind of like little Bunsen burner type thing. And I had already smelled gas. So I thought, oh fuck. I said, hold on a minute. And I got out of the trailer and said, all right, go ahead. Little thing, and that's what would be my heat. Anyway, so we shot a lot of stuff down there, and Gung Ho, yes, was about that whole thing that was going on, and pretty good comedy. I always felt like I let him down in that one. I thought I should have been better in that one.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you have done differently?
I don't know. I just look at it and go, it's all right. You know what I mean? I look at it and I go, I'm not sure I was specific enough, you know. It's funny, when I was talking about this the other day, when I look at, I'm really not one to, I'm pretty, practical and realistic about my work and what the project is and everything. And when I look at things, generally speaking, I'm pretty flat on it. You know, I go, wow, that's just really me. That's just really average, or I don't know why I did that, but I don't beat myself up about it unless it's really bad. But and when I see something that's good, I go, oh yeah, that's good. That whole scene's good, or I'm good in that movie. And I may have had a moment where I go, fuck yeah, I'm really good in that scene. And then when I'm bad, I go, that's pretty embarrassing. It's not, that whole other thing is a kind of waste of time. I'm so fucking good. It's so fucking boring and false. And the other thing that's false is I suck so much. It's just a lie. It's bullshit. All of it's bullshit. You just gotta be honest with it. So when I look at certain scenes or look at certain things, I go, I'm pretty, what I say, flat on it. I kind of just see it. But I find that this kind of occurred to me recently. Almost every time that I do start to obsess a little bit about something and go, ooh, man, I'd like another shot at that one, or I wish the timing, it's almost always the comedy. It's almost
Really?
it's almost always the calm. I like 99% of the time where you go, I think I got that one. You know, you just always want to go in and kind of fine tune the timing, or, you know, maybe you were too big, or you know what I mean. Maybe you didn't sell that right. The great thing about like Multiplicity was you really could go over. You had to go over it and over it and over it and all the time, and you kind of knew. I kind of knew it was such an amazing experiment because you could do it so easily, technologically. But when I would have to do, am I jumping around too much?
No.
Okay, when I had to do, there were days when I counted one day, and I wish I remember, and I wish I'd have kept my chart. I may have that somewhere. I'm not very good about this stuff. I had to have a chart in the trailer where I'd say, okay, where am I number 1 now, number 2 now? You know, I'm cloned in this movie. And it was cloning. It wasn't, it wasn't, now he's the big fat guy, you know, or it wasn't like, he's a girl. You know, it was like, no, it's cloning. It's like just, you know, it's like changes, you know, just little changes. And
slightly duller copies.
Yeah, until the final one, which is just the final guy. You know?
He was my favorite, actually.
Yes, I know. And I must say, I think I stole a couple of things from Jerry Lewis a couple times. So you would go in and you'd say, oh, man, I had so many costume changes, because sometimes you go in as number 1, and then you go, and then you're going to play the second guy, and then you go back to 1, then you go to the third guy, then you go back to 1, then you go and play the second guy, and maybe at the end of the day you might play the final guy. And then next day you might, it would change constantly, so it was change, and then out of sequence, out of order, you know, not shot in order. So the wardrobe changes would change, the makeup, and then the scenes were changing, and in a day you would have to do everything in one single shooting day. And like I say, no, you know, acting against ping pong balls on a stand, on a C-stand. And then we did have a couple of guys who were really helpful, really good actors who come in and at the beginning kind of play off me as me. And sometimes that worked, and sometimes it was distracting, and sometimes it was very helpful. And so what happened was you started to know what you would be in a scene, sometimes with a ping pong ball, doing your lines and hearing yourself talk and doing the thing. And as you're doing it, you're thinking, I wonder how I'm reacting to this. And sometimes I'd get an idea, and I'd have to play what I think the reaction is going to be, and I'd have to remember and think, oh, I know what I want to do when I come around that side, but I'd have to then play something kind of in a void, knowing that maybe 2 days from now I was coming back to shoot the other thing. So kind of set myself up 2 days in advance to hopefully do the thing down the line and nail it. You know what I mean? It was like that all the time.
When you saw it, did you feel it paid off?
A lot of it did. Yeah, a lot of it did, because Harold Ramis was such a comedy guy. Yeah.
In 1988, you actually had 2 wildly different roles that are 2 of my favorites. Obviously, Beetlejuice, your first teaming with Tim Burton. How did you 2 meet? And, you know, I was going to say, like, I'm curious how he pitched this to you, because it's so bizarre, but then it's like, you see it and it's so bizarre. So maybe that's exactly what he pitched.
The only thing, remember now, at this point, he had only done, Frankenweenie.
Yeah. This was his, Nightmare came much later.
Oh, yeah, much later. He had only done this little movie called Frankenweenie, which got him a lot of attention. And
he done Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yeah. Did he already do that?
I think that was his first.
Because the first thing they sent me was an animated movie called Frankenweenie, which I don't even think it was a full length. It was a short.
And then they just put it out.
Right. And so I looked at it and I went, oh, wow, okay. And they said, do you want to meet this guy? And they tried it, and they didn't, David Geffen or whomever said they didn't even attempt to explain it to me. They just said, just meet Tim. And so when I go and I meet Tim, and nobody really knew who Tim was, and I said, oh, seems like a nice guy. And he was really doing his best to explain it. When you see him now, he's very and he has been. I mean, he's very, very articulate, but he's always much more, and still probably is, but always much more articulate by drawing you something or showing you something. I don't mean to make him sound, he's obviously, but I said, wow, this is, there's something about this guy. You just like the guy. And but I couldn't tell how good he was or anything. I didn't know. I just thought he was a nice guy, and he tried to explain it to me. They said, well, what do you think? I said, I don't know what this is. I really don't know what this is. It's kind of a big, I don't know what it is. And he drew me sketches, and the original sketch, nothing like this man, Beetlejuice, this gentleman. So
a gentleman trying to marry a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of creepy when you start thinking about that. You know, you go, Jesus Christ. And I actually talked about that, and I said, well, I justified it by, it wasn't about the marriage, it was about him staying, alive, staying on and keeping around, being around. So so I met him, and I said, no, a nice guy, but I don't know. And a little bit of time went by. I said, would you meet with him again? And I said, yeah, but I don't know what the thing is, And I go, okay. And I went and met him. And I go, I don't really like this guy. And I was getting a little closer. And I think it was the third time. I remember the restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant on Lincoln, down in Santa Monica. And I can't remember the name of it. Good margaritas, though. And I went down, and it was lunchtime, so we were not drinking, but we were eating Mexican food and talking. And I started, getting closer. And he said a couple of key things. And I went, okay, all right, can I go home and think about this? He goes, yes. And I go home, and I called the wardrobe department at Raleigh Studios, because we shot at Raleigh Studios, I think, or Warner Brothers. He said a couple things that made me think, and I started thinking about what to do with makeup. And then I was by myself in my house, and I started just do a walk. And the first thing I thought of was that I always wanted him to be borderline scary. And I thought, her creepy teeth, they're just a little bit too big. And then we decided that Neil, the great Neil, and I colored him up, and I started doing a walk and a thing, and I just started, and I had all this. I said, send me wardrobe from all time periods, just send me time, because he said something that I kind of keyed in on. And then I just started walking around the house, trying on different clothes, and the first thing that made me go, oh, wait a minute, I got an idea, was the hat that said guide. I thought, guide to where? And I thought, oh yeah, that's gonna work somewhere. I'm putting that on some point. So I said, okay, let's do it. And this is the amazing thing. There wasn't a lot of money, and it's handmade. When you look at it now, it's so fucking cool. It's handmade, man. They made everything. There was, green screen, and there was a little bit of computerization, I think, maybe, but all that they made that stuff. It was like I remember saying people tried to ask me what it was like. I said it was like if Spielberg and Coppola and Tim Burton and some other guys were all in a class together, and there was a project. Fuck, you look at Spielberg, Coppola, and you'd go, holy shit, look how perfect and great. And then you'd look at Tim's and you'd go, what the fuck is that? And I am just weird enough that I'd start to gravitate toward that. So I said, okay, here's the amazing thing. So now they had already started shooting.
Oh, really?
And he had never really seen, and then I started meeting with V. Neil, the great makeup artist.
Oh, whoever had the idea to put the moss.
Well,
he said, what does it for me.
He said he lives in different times. He couldn't explain, because he writes Coal Boy. Have you ever seen Coal Boy? His character, Coal Boy. And it wasn't. He said it's not Coal Boy. I don't know what he lives in. He could be this. He could be that. He said he might. I don't know. There's no time for him. He lives in all time things. I mean, maybe he lives under rocks. And when he said he lives under rocks, I remember that was one of the things. And I said to V, I want some mold. I think there should be mold. And she started to put mold. She made it up and put it up. And the one thing that I knew, I said, I'm just going to use. This is kind of cheap, but when you don't know what to do, actors sometimes, the easiest and cheapest way to go is to use anger, or sometimes people can get by energy. That's one thing I thought, I think I'm onto something, but I'm really not sure, so I just knew, I said, I want him starting, as opposed to starting here and ramping to here, I want him starting here and just ramping to here. And so I said, I want my hair like that. I said, like he went like that, I said, and I showed up on set. It was like, I showed up on set, and I'll never forget this. Nobody had seen the whole thing together. or knew what we were going to do.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, here we go. I don't know if this is going to, I really thought, this could be horrible. I mean, truly horrible. But at the time, I didn't care. I thought, whatever. I don't know, it's this little movie. This guy seems like a really good guy to be around. He's sure. I knew he was an artist, you know, knew he was artistic. And I thought, oh, whatever. I don't know. I really didn't feel like I had that much to lose. I'd look foolish. So what?
It's not like he's going to go on to direct a big budget
no,
franchise.
No, well, really. He and I were just guys, you know, kind of getting started in a way. And so I walked in, and a couple of the crew guys started laughing at my look, and one guy started calling me Juice. And then a couple of crew guys said, Juice, and we hadn't shot a foot of film. And we started shooting, and I said, here we go. And I just started doing it. And like immediately, Tim goes, he's so great. He goes, he used to grab his head a lot. He goes, yes, yes. And he'd go, and his hair is flying around, and I'd say, wait, Michael, go up there and then do that. But then when you do that. And I go, okay. And then I just start doing what he said. And then I go, and then he said, now you gotta see that, like the set, walk on the set in that tree, and stick the tree up. You go up and you kick the tree up over like something. I go, okay. And he tried to describe to me what it was going to look like. And now I'm starting to get a sense of this thing. I go, oh, okay, I kind of see what he's doing. Physically, I saw what the look was going to be. So then I just went up and I did a couple takes, and I kicked the tree over, and I go, nice fucking model. And just to go, why not? I'm going to say anything. You know? The greatest thing about Beetlejuice is you never ask the question, what would my character do? So he would laugh hysterically, and I go, okay, come on down here, let's do this. And we just started doing all this stuff, and it was like, okay, game on, let's go, you know, let's just go. And I only shot like 17 days or something.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not, I don't even know, I didn't shoot 17 days. I shot less than that. I'm not in it much.
Really?
No, really, the character's not even physically, anyway. And you know, Catherine O'Hara's in it, who's like, God, I love Catherine O'Hara. But all the stuff like, you know, having a stick and like, you know, like that just came like, those poor people were so patient with me. Alec Baldwin, who is so funny, and Gina Davis, you know, they'd be standing there, and I'd take my stick and I'd try to look up her dress and stuff. He's just so tremendously disgusting. And that was not there. And she, instead of her going, hey, what are you doing? You know, like an actress would go, that's not in any script. She'd just kind of play it, you know what I mean? It was just such great fun. Everybody just playing, just rolling along with it. But he was what he did know was, no, this happens, and then this happens, and then your head spins. And he said, can I show you? And I'd say, yeah. And he'd say, see, it's going to kind of look like this. And in the back, it's going to be this. And then we go down that, this is going to happen. And then the whole thing with, you know, in the afterlife, he showed me the afterlife. It was there. It was there, you know. Just the guy wasn't really there until he started to come together, you know. But you know, he had some of it was there originally, but.
And then I can't imagine like a bigger leap to go from that to Clean and Sober in the same year. If I had
same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it was a 180 from anything I think I'd seen you do before, and you know, so many actors known for comedy struggle to break into drama. Mm-hmm. How did this come to you?
Glenn Gordon Caron sent it, and I think in Night Shift there's a scene under a Christmas tree that's, you know, the tiny little dramatic scene with my character that's just a short little scene. And I think and I remember that people, there was like, when we were doing the scene, there was kind of like, I thought, whoa, I'm really not playing this correctly, because everything got kind of quiet or something, and then Ronnie kind of came over and said, let's go again. I don't think they thought I was going to play that like that. And, you know what it's like. You go, well, this is my interpretation of the guy or person, you know what I mean? You go, okay, so now we're in that scene, and this guy is doing, and I try to break things down to the simplest form. So now I'm that. The scene calls for that, and so here we are. As opposed, and I think because of what I was playing, they weren't ready, and they liked it. And I think Glenn saw that and was watching this guy dance, you know, be funny, and they went, whoa, wait a minute, I wasn't kind of ready for that scene. And I don't know if that's the thing that made him go, wow, I wonder what that guy would be like. And he had probably seen some other stuff, but it wasn't like I was going, I need to have a drama. You know, I don't know, like, people need to take me seriously. Nobody needs to do anything, really. It's nobody's job to, you know what I mean? Nobody needs to, that thing of people need to take me seriously makes the assumption that people are even thinking about you.
Well, I love that movie so much, and
I like that movie a
another
lot.
drama you did, My Life, which just I remember seeing it, and my boyfriend at the time told me later, who actually was a professional Beetlejuice impersonator.
Really?
Yes. Told me later that all the women went in the restroom, and the men were like, "Is your girlfriend in there crying?" And they were like, "Yeah." "Did you cry?"
Oh.
And they were like, "Yeah."
Yeah, it kills guys. Kevin, I forget his name, played center for the Penguins. Why am I going? This guy's a really good hockey player. Tough guy, obviously, hockey player. It's kind of yes, Kevin Stevens, thank you, once told me he was, it crushes guys. Crushes guys. He was sitting in a theater in Pittsburgh. He said it was like matinee, and he's sitting there like this, and they had an electrical problem, and the projector went down, and they had to turn the lights on. And when the lights on, everybody's kind of sitting there, looking around. You see everybody, and everybody in Pittsburgh's not that big, and they love hockey. And so they go, "Hey, there's Kevin Stevens." And he's sitting there like this. He's crying. Oh yeah, that'll kill you. That'll bring men to their knees. It does. It's really tough.
Oh my God, yes. And I'm sorry, I'm going to jump ahead because we're actually running out of time.
Oh wow,
so my fault.
Sorry.
Obviously I have to talk about Birdman.
Yeah. Is that for you or me?
Well, now we're out of time, so great. Thanks a lot. I know you were a fan of Alejandro Inarritu. You say his name so much better than I do. Thank you. Long before he came to you with this project.
Yeah, I told a friend of mine, we were talking about Birdman, and I said, he said, how is it? I said, no, it's, you know what, it's really something. I don't know, where we are, but it's just really something, this experiment, this working with this guy. I love this guy. I said, but we were talking about how much we both were talking about how much we liked him as a director. And I said, I'll be honest with you, I'd have done this movie based on Amores Perros Alone. And he said, I'd have done that movie based on the car accident scene in Amores Perros Alone.
And when it comes to you with the idea of an actor who's been out of the scene for a while, trying to make a comeback, who used to be a former superhero, I mean, did that concern you at all, or did you jump right into it?
Well, we didn't talk about, first I started going, oh, wait a minute, because I love this guy's work, and I thought, oh, wait, is this going to be like some, because there was no script yet, he hadn't shown me a script. He really wanted to talk and explain things a lot. And he talks a lot. And so we sat down, had a meal, and we're talking. He's very passionate. His English is very good, but no matter how good when you come from another culture, I learned this later, I figured this out later. He didn't actually understand a lot of the things that I was saying for a good while, because it was just, especially, it's a hard thing to, you start to talk about scenes or acting, they can be kind of, I don't know, obtuse is the word, or you're talking kind of in the abstract. It's not like you're saying, well, the bottle's made of plastic, water, it's not like that. It's like, and so, I think he was feeling me out. He wanted to know how I worked. And then I said, how do you work? And I told him, and we talked, and I liked him, and we were talking about it. And then when it came to that, I was kind of thinking, oh shoot, he started going on the road, and I did think honestly for him, and I thought, oh fuck, is this going to be the thing? Because he said he was trying to hit me to the fact that this was really going to be an experimental type of making this movie, and he really wanted me to understand that this is not your your standard movie. And so he really went on and on about that and how we have to be committed to be off script immediately. And I need everybody to be on it. And the rehearsal process is going to be like this and that and that. Then he starts talking about this. And I'm thinking, oh man, is he experimenting? And he said it was going to be a comedy. And
From the director of Biddeful.
Yeah, 21 grams. And so I started going, for a minute, I did go, oh, come on, don't say anything that I'm going to hate here. And he started talking to me, and we got through that. I go, okay. And he says I said something like, please don't. And I don't think I said anything like that, but I probably did go, wait, what is, this isn't going to be like an experiment, document. I don't know what I said, frankly. And honestly, that was kind of it. I don't ever remember talking about it again, and I went thinking about that aspect of it before I read it, and I started reading it, and so not anything remotely, that wasn't such a non-issue for me. And then to even discuss it, really for the most part, was so not worth the time, because it also kind of became a non-issue. Now, that's not to say, and when I talk about it, I think a lot has been made out of me saying I never related to a character less. I did say either that or something very close to that, because I really don't relate to the personality type.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know the personality type. I try to avoid the personality type. You know, and I'm not that, and so, but that doesn't matter. I'm not I played a killer. I played Dogberry, and I'm not him. I actually do kind of relate to.
Dogberry?
Well, I actually based all my version of Dogberry on a guy my dad knew, to tell you the truth. Because when I saw Much Ado About Nothing, like I wanted to look at it, and I knew almost nothing about. I knew, I hadn't done Shakespeare except a little thing in a class one time for an hour, and I thought, I know that Shakespeare people think this is funny. I just don't think this is very funny. And I questioned even back then that they thought it was funny. I think this was blown out of proportions. I thought, I don't know, I got to find a way into this guy. Anyway, that's that. So when Alejandro, we talked about it, and there was no real time to even talk about that issue. You know what I mean? Because during the production, it was like such a non-issue. So when I approach something, I just go to work and approach it. So the guy's personality type was really interesting to me, and I kind of did dig submitting, to being pathetic, and just being so fucking needy and so fucking, if you play that I don't believe in playing it halfway. The thing of like, well, I hope people like me. You better throw that out the window. If you're not supposed to be liked, don't be liked. Don't worry about people liking you, you know what I mean? And so I thought, man, this is what he is, and also, like, I always thought that was the job. The job is to take your pants off and show everybody everything.
Literally.
What I mean? Yeah, literally in this case. No, but I mean, I always thought this is it. Now, you never get to do, like, that warts and all. You seldom get to do that. And then you never get to do, you never get to play literally crazy, pathetic, funny, ironic, true, fucking sad, really it's not only in one scene, sometimes within 30 seconds, and not without the luxury of, well, they'll get me here and they'll cover me here, and I got all that. We have an editor who will piece together the best of all 17 takes here, 11 takes here, and there wasn't any of that. So what choice do you have but to say, I'm all in, dude, you gotta be all in. If you're a punk, if you're not.
Well, I think one thing that's very different between you and Riggin is, he's striving for acceptance and he wants this fame. You sort of walked away of your own volition, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, for a role like this to bring you back,
I know, yes,
yeah.
of course. Yeah, and then, that I probably did kind of go, oh, this is so, and also the difference was I was fortunate, and I mean fortunate enough to, I've done okay. I've played a lot of things, and I'm known for doing things. And then Batman came along, and there was that. And then I did things after that. The Riggin first of all, had to be a pretty good actor. There's so much to talk about this guy.
Yeah, I was curious if he was supposed to be a good actor.
Well, the thing is, you don't get that gig as, first of all, look at these guys playing superheroes. Fucking, they're monsters. These guys are awesome. They're tremendous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at these guys. I mean, these are great. These guys are great. And so, let's say he's not even that great. You don't get to get a lot. And my whole backstory was, I remember moving his town from where they had me. I don't know why. I just said he's in Syracuse. I just made it up. I said, nah, that's where he grew up. I don't know why I make these choices like it. So I said, this kid comes from Syracuse, and I kind of gave him a background with the parents and why I was kind of needy a little bit and wanted to be in the theater and blah, 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 blah. So he then goes, boom, and gets a couple gigs. And he must have been pretty good. And when somebody gives you that job, you can't be a bad actor. No studio was going to, they couldn't risk that. So that's not realistic. And also, it's boring to go, he's a bad actor, but now he does a play. Because that means you have to, then you don't believe the story in a way. And it's also not very interesting. It doesn't make it complex. So that was really interesting to say, well, where is he? You know, he had been pretty good a couple of times, and then he got this gig. And that gig defined him, unfortunately, because he probably did not have anything besides that made him go, boom, which was, you know, a blessing and a curse in his case. You know, for me, total fucking blessing. I'm as grateful as all get out for even being considered to be Batman, and I actually think it was pretty fucking good. For him, thanks. For him, that's an enormous burden, you know, and then, you know, on top of a dude who's like massively insecure and needy and bases everything on the surface of stuff and was working really hard to go deeper and deeper. And so he carried that, you know. But what I have to say is I really like him. I admire him for his courage and for, you know, what we're talking about, for trying something and trying so hard and putting himself out there in a situation like that, you know. And I guess the meta of it is that you do, I guess, and can and will and whatever, would look at me and go, well, wait a minute, he did do that, and he did do that, and he did do that, and we haven't seen him for a while. It hasn't been in a $100 million movie, and isn't that, and you go, yeah, there's that. So, you know, I thought of that, and I went, well, I'm really not very, I think it's cowardly not to say, fuck you, and do it anyway.
I have so much more I want to ask, but you're a very busy man. Break a leg on Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for being a great
Thank
audience.
you.
Thank you.